At this time, I'm going to go over the scientific method and go a little into detail about the experimental design. So to start off with, I'm going to use the example of growing tomatoes with fertilizer. So an observation that I made was the tomato plants I grew with fertilizer grew taller than the tomato plants without fertilizer. So from this, I can develop a hypothesis. My hypothesis is going to be the more fertilizer I add to my tomato plants, the taller they will grow. Once I develop my hypothesis, I can go ahead and figure out what my variables are. So the first variable I have to figure out is the independent variable, also abbreviated IV. You can think about this as this is what the scientist manipulates or changes. Okay, since it's independent variable IV, what did I change? Well, in this case, I changed the amount of fertilizer. Now, then we have to figure out what the dependent variable is, also abbreviated DV. The dependent variable is what do I measure? And in this case, I'm measuring plant growth. When we're measuring anything in science, we want to make sure we use the metric system. So in this case, I'm going to say I measured my plant growth in centimeters. Okay, as long as you stick to the metric system in science, you're good. Okay, I also from here can tell what my control group is going to be. Or CG. Not all experiments are going to be able to have a control group, but if you can, you need to have one. Okay, the control group serves as a standard of comparison. It's what happens under normal conditions or normal situations. So the control group in this case for me are going to be the plants grown without fertilizer. This is normal soil without fertilizer. Okay, so my independent variable, what am I changing? I'm changing the amount of fertilizer. What am I measuring? I'm measuring the plant growth in centimeters. My control group are going to be the plants that are grown under normal conditions in normal soil. I'm going to be able to compare the results I get from the independent and dependent variable to the control group to see if my experiment actually had any significance. Okay, then I have to figure out what are my constants. Constants are things that are kept the same throughout the experiment. We want to make sure that the only thing having an effect on our plant growth is the amount of fertilizer. So with that being said, I'm going to draw my little tomato plants. Sorry the drawings are so bad, but it'll serve its purpose for now. Gotta give it some leaves. They've got to go through photosynthesis. Okay, so here I have my control group. That's going to be the one without fertilizer. Then I'm going to say I'm going to put 2 grams of fertilizer in this one, 4 grams in this one, and 6 grams in this one. Now, what are some things that I'm going to keep the same throughout all of these? Well, I'm going to make sure that each one has the same amount of soil, that they each receive the same amount of sunlight, that I'm going to use the same type of plant. And that doesn't just mean a tomato plant, but a specific type of tomato plant. The size of the pot, the amount of water, and anything else that I'm going to do to one plant, I'm going to make sure I'm going to do to all of them. Okay, once all that is taken care of, I'm going to repeat this experiment multiple times. So I'm going to have replicates. In order to be anywhere near scientifically significant, I'm going to repeat it a minimum of 3 more times. If you are doing a large scale experiment for a very large research group, then you are going to be doing it hundreds of thousands of times. In a typical high school setting, if we're doing a science experiment, 3 or 4 times for each group will be satisfactory. I'm going to collect all my data. I'm going to analyze my data. I'm going to draw a conclusion. And when I'm finished with all of that, I'm going to write a research paper. Large scale experiments, and I'm talking about in a college or a big university, they're going to be submitting this to a journal like the New England Journal of Medicine, Journal of Entomology, the Journal of Botany. But in a high school setting, then it's just going to be a typical paper that you would turn in to your teacher or to like the science fair board. And that's all.